They say, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day, Revelation 1:10. They say, well, the Lord's Day was Sunday. It doesn't say so. It says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day. It doesn't say what day it was. Only the Bible can say which is the Lord's Day. And there it is, Isaiah 58:13. If thou turn thy foot away from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord. So which is the Lord's Day according to the Bible? The Sabbath, not Sunday. So I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day. It doesn't really cut any ice. What about this one? Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Does that do away with the Sabbath or establish who is in authority when it comes to the Sabbath? By the way, who created this world? Jesus. Was it the Father or was it through the Son? Through the Son. It was through the Son. You go and read. John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Everything that was created on this world was created through Him and for Him. By His Word it stands. So Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. Catholic Press, Sydney, August 25, 1900. Sunday is a Catholic institution and its claims to observance can be defended only on Catholic principles. These are all Catholic quotes. From the beginning to the end of Scriptures, there is not a single passage which warrants the transfer of the weekly public worship from the last day of the week to the first. They are so straightforward on this. You may read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation and you will not find a single line authorizing the sanctification of Sunday. The Scriptures enforce the religious observance of Saturday. James Cardinal Gibbons, The Faith of Our Fathers. The Catholic Church is throwing out the gauntlet and saying, there, take it or leave it. Choose. The Christian Sabbath is to this day the acknowledged offspring of the Catholic Church as spouse of the Holy Ghost without a word of remonstrance from the Protestant world. Catholic Mirror, September 23. So they say to the Protestants, you say you're Protestants, why you obey us then? If you obey us, then you're ours, whether you like it or not. They're so arrogant. Chancellor of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, replying for the Cardinal in a letter dated February 10, 1920, if Protestants would follow the Bible, they should worship God on the Sabbath day. In keeping the Sunday, they are following a law of the Catholic Church. This is the Catholic Church speaking. John Gibney Shea, American Catholic Quarterly Review, Protestantism in discarding the authority of the Roman Church has no good reason for its Sunday theory and ought logically to keep Saturday as the Sabbath. Not the Creator, this is really arrogant, not the Creator of the universe in Genesis 2, 1 and 3, but the Catholic Church can claim the honor of having granted man a pause to his work every 7 days. This is so arrogant, it blows my mind.
That's quotes I've never seen before.
This is unbelievable. This one was made not in the Middle Ages, this was made in 1969. Reason and common sense demand, and this one should really clinch it. Reason and common sense demand acceptance of one or the other of these alternatives, either Protestantism and the keeping holy of Saturday, or Catholicity and the keeping holy of Sunday. Compromise is impossible. There you go. Catholic Mirror, December 23, 1893. There's the battle line. If you obey God, you keep which day? Saturday. If you obey the Catholic Church, you keep Sunday. That's what they're saying. So if you're a Protestant, but you're keeping Sunday, you're really obeying whom? You're obeying the Pope. That doesn't mean that Protestants out there who have never heard this information now have the mark of the beast. They don't. Because God is judging them according to the light that they have. But this issue is going to become prominent very, very soon. Because the present Pope has asked for worldwide Sunday legislation. And your president had said, we want to implement his teachings. That's interesting. I'll show it to you still. I'll show it to you. So now, why do Protestants keep on keeping Sunday? Well, what do they say? Do they know this or don't they know this? Yes, they know it. Yes, they know it. Let's have it run through them quickly. The Episcopals say, is there any commandment in the New Testament to change the day of weekly rest from Saturday to Sunday? None. Manual of Christian Doctrine. That's their big writing. We have made a change from seventh day to the first day, from Saturday to Sunday, on the authority of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church of Christ. Why we keep Sunday? That's the Episcopal Church. Well, they're so near to the Catholics, it's just sort of a hiccup between them. But they say, they know, but they keep Sunday. All right? What about the other Protestant groups? The Lutheran Church, we observe the Lord's Day, Sunday, is founded, or the observance of the Lord's Day, Sunday, is founded not on any command of God, but on the authority of the church. This is the Augsburg Confession. This is the central document for Lutheranism in the Catholic Sabbath Manual, Part 2, Section 1. They know it. All right? What about the Presbyterians? A change of the day to be observed from the last day of the week to the first. There is no record, no express command authorizing the change. This is the Christian Sabbath in L. Rice, one of their spokespersons. Fine. What about the Methodists? Take the matter of Sunday. There is no passage telling Christians to keep that day or to transfer the Jewish Sabbath to that day. Christian Advocate, July 2, 1942. So the Methodists know it. Well, what's going on here? What about the Congregationalists? It's quite clear that however rigidly or devoutly we spend Sunday, we are not keeping the Sabbath. There's not a single sentence in the New Testament to suggest that we incur any penalty by violating the supposed sanctity of Sunday. This is the Ten Commandments by Dr. Dale. All right, that's the Congregationalists. Is there anybody out there? Hello, Anglicans? Many people think that Sunday is the Sabbath. But neither in the New Testament nor in the early church is there anything to suggest that we have any right to transfer the observance of the seventh day of the week to the first. The Sabbath was and is Saturday, not Sunday. Reverend Lionel Beard, Church of the People. There we go. Well, what about the Baptists? There was and is a commandment to keep holy the Sabbath day, but that Sabbath was not Sunday. There is no scriptural evidence of the change of the Sabbath institution from the seventh day to the first day of the week. Is this anybody speaking? Oh no, this is Hiscox. He's the author of the Baptist Manual. He should know. So they all know. Every single one of them knows. Here's another one. Reverend Philip Carrington, Arlington Bishop, Quebec. He sent them all in a scurry saying outright that there was nothing to support Sunday being kept holy. He definitely told a church meeting in this city of straight-laced Protestantism that tradition, not the Bible, had made Sunday the day of worship. Toronto Daily Star. So tradition, pagan tradition, introduced by Rome, kept it. Now what does the Lord say about tradition? Well, let's read that. Almost all churches throughout the world celebrate the sacred mysteries, the Lord's Supper, on the Sabbath of every week. Yet the Christians, and now note this, of Alexandria and at Rome, on account of some ancient tradition, have ceased to do this. This is ecclesiastical history. Now, Alexandria is the one where all the pagan doctrines were introduced. This is where the Sadducees learned that there was no resurrection, but that when you go to heaven, you go and sit on Abraham's lap. And Jesus said, hey, what are you teaching there? There's no such thing. So Alexandria and Rome are the seat of paganism. Alexandria taught ancient Egyptian Gnostic mysteries and based on Kabbalism and Gnosticism. Ancient tradition. Well, Catholic record says Sunday is founded not on scripture but on tradition and is a distinctly Catholic institution. We will deal with that in some astounding detail, what paganism has done and how occultism has controlled some of these decisions. The New Testament makes no explicit mention that the apostle changed the day of worship, but we know it from tradition. This is the Revised Baltimore Catechism. So these are the authoritative documents of the church. It's all based on tradition. And the Bible says, Matthew 15, 3, 6, and 9, he answered and said to them, why do you transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? And you voided the commandments of God by your tradition, but in vain they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Can you do it, yes or no? No, you can't. You cannot substitute tradition for obedience. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are but rules taught by men. And he said to them, you have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. Mark 7 and 9. So the Bible says one thing, the Rome says another, and here we have a basis for conflict. And this basis for conflict is going to rise like a mushroom, and it's going to come to a head very, very soon. The authority of the church could therefore not be bound by the authority of the Scriptures, because the church had changed the Sabbath into Sunday, not by the command of Christ, but by its own authority. Canon and Tradition, page 263. That's it. That's the choice, whether we like it or whether we don't. Acts 20 says, for I know this, that after my departure, grievous wolves come in and change the doctrines. All right. If you go to your churches and you ask them, why do we keep Sunday? Then there is a scurry and a flurry. And then there will be some scriptural evidence brought forward, although all the authoritative writers have said there is no scriptural authority for the transfer. Yet they will tell you there are texts in the Bible which said that they worshipped on the first day of the week, and therefore we worship on the first day of the week. Or they will say that Jesus abolished the Sabbath and nailed it to the cross, and we no longer keep it. Therefore let no one judge you as to a Sabbath day, quoting Colossians and all those texts. Or they will say to you, how do we know what the Sabbath is? You know, there's been so much time, and then it really doesn't matter. Observe any day. What day did God say you must observe? The Sabbath day. Imagine you have a rendezvous with your loved one that you haven't seen for a long time, and she says, Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock, I arrive. Please pick me up at the station. And you think, okay, that's all right. I love her. I'll go on Thursday. Do you think she'll be happy? I kind of doubt it. All right. Thank you. The first day of the week. Let's have a look at these texts that are used to substantiate Sunday observance. The first text we find in Matthew 28 verse 1. It says, there are 8 texts about the first day of the week that are used. The first one says, in the end of the Sabbath it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre, and that's it. Is there anything about a change of the Sabbath, yes or no? It's a purely historic statement. The New English Bible says the Sabbath had passed and it was daybreak on Sunday when Mary so-and-so and so-and-so. So it's a purely factual statement. There's nothing in it. All right, we can discard it. Luke 23, 54, 56, by the way, tells us that these women, they kept the Sabbath. They prepared spices and ointments and rested on the Sabbath day according to the commandment. So they knew nothing about a change. When these women came on the first day, it's because they didn't go on the Sabbath day, because they rested according to the commandment. All right, the second text we find in Mark chapter 16, 1 and 2. And when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome had brought spices that they might come and anoint him. Very early in the morning on the first day of the week they came to the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. Anything about a change there? Not a word. All right, third text, Mark 16, 9. When Jesus was risen early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast 7 devils. Anything there about a change? Or is it just a statement of fact? Statement of fact, nothing there about a change. We can discard that one. Fourth text. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came to the sepulchre bringing the spices. So that's in Luke, it's the other gospel. He repeats the story. Anything about a change? Nothing. So we can discard that one. We only got 4 left that we have to deal with. Fifth one, John 20 verse 1. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early when it was yet dark into the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Anything there? Nothing. That leaves us with 3. Sixth text, John 20 verse 19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled, for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and says unto them, Peace be unto you. This one is used quite often. Aha! The disciples came together on the first day of the week. They were worshipping. It doesn't say so. It says they came together on the first day of the week for what? Fear of the Jews. You see, on the Sabbath, they knew they were relatively safe because no Jew would do anything. He would think he would be breaking the Sabbath. But when the Sabbath was over, they were quaking in their boots. So it says nothing about worship. That leaves two texts, and these are the hot ones. Acts 20 verse 7. And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. Now the New English Bible says on Saturday night they came together. They say, well, here's the text which says that they worshipped on the Sabbath day, and they had communion. They broke bread. Now let's analyze this text carefully. On the first day of the week, they came together to break bread. When does the first day start? At the end of the Sabbath. What time of day was that? It was in the evening. So, they came together when the first day of the week came. It was evening and they came to break bread. Alright, so that's one text we have to look at. They came to break bread. But Paul preached to them, ready to depart on the morrow. So when the light should dawn, it would still be which day? Sunday, the first day. And he was going to go a long, long way. And he talked to them until midnight. Poor old Eutychus was sitting there in the window, and Paul was probably going on and on. Fell out the window. Remember the story? And Paul had to rush down and prayed over him, and he got up. So this was not a Sunday morning meeting. This was a evening meeting. But it wasn't held on the Sabbath because the Sabbath was holy. They came together after the Sabbath. Paul had a lot to tell them. And if Sunday was so holy, why was Paul going to march the next day many, many kilometers on the so-called Holy Sunday? No. So we only have one thing still to deal with, the breaking of the bread. Let's make sure that it was in the evening. We read further in Acts 28 and 11, there were many lights in the upper chambers where they were gathered together. So it was dark, right? And it couldn't have been Sunday evening because that would have been the second day of the week, so they came together after the Sabbath. When he therefore came up again and had broken bread and eaten, he talked a long while, even till break of day, so he departed. So he even stayed longer and talked. And then when it was daylight, off he went. So it wasn't a holy day for him at all. He was going to go away, and that's the only time he had with a meeting for them. Now as for the other bit, the breaking of the bread, Acts 2:46 says, and they continued, what's it say there? Daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, did they eat their meat with gladness of heart. So they didn't have a communion, they had supper together. That's what it was. So we have one text left. One text left. So in fact, this text, this previous one, supports the sanctity of the Sabbath. Because only after the Sabbath did they get together to discuss issues, and then off they went. 8th text, 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2. Now concerning the collection for the saints. Yes, they held church collection. As I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so you do. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store. By the way, the Weymouth translation brings it out nicely. It says, lay by at home, as God has prospered him, that there be no gathering when I come. So the critics will say, well, they held a collection during the service in church. No. The text refers to a putting aside of the money on the first day of the week at home. Now let's think about that. In the old days, like with many people that still work today that earn their money on a weekly basis, when is payday on a weekly basis? Friday. Friday you get your pay, the work is over, you get your pay. Now you take your money and you take it home. But in the mindset of the Hebrew, Friday is the preparation. You're getting ready for the Sabbath. Paul says, put your money aside when? On the first day of the week. The logical thing is to work it all out, put aside your offering and your tithe and whatever you want to put aside. Paul says no. Don't do it on the Friday when you get your money. The Sabbath is coming. The Sabbath is holy. Do it early on the first day of the week, after the Sabbath. So when the Sabbath is over, after Sunday, you go and sit down, put aside your money so that you don't use it during the next week, and then keep it there until it can be collected. So does it help Sunday worship or does it help Sabbath worship, this text? It's actually for Sabbath worship. The Sabbath is so holy, do it on the first day of the week. So none of those texts did it. So did Jesus change the Sabbath? Luke 4:16. And he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. So Jesus kept the Sabbath. Jesus said not one jot or one tittle would be removed from the law. Matthew 5:17-19. Jesus didn't change the Sabbath. For even hereunto we are called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example, that we should follow him. And we should walk even as he walked, 1 John 2:6. So Jesus kept the Sabbath. There's no evidence of a change of a Sabbath. So where's the evidence? Malachi 3:6, I am the Lord, I change not. Jesus didn't change. Psalms 89:4, my covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing which has gone out of my lips. God doesn't change. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. Who changed it? Catholic Church, not Jesus. If you love me, then keep my commandments. If you love them, keep their commandments. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. And he said, I know him, and he that says I know him and keeps not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. That's strong words. 1 John 2:4. That's it. You either obey God or you don't. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. 1 John 5:3. Whosoever says that he lives in God should live just as Jesus Christ did. He kept the Sabbath. Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example. If you love me, keep my commandments. That's the example. Well, the Christian world will say, the cross changed the Sabbath. No, it didn't. Let's have a look. That day was the preparation. That was Friday. The word preparation is just used for that Friday. Preparing for the Sabbath. Luke 23:54. And the women also which came from Galilee followed, beheld the sepulchre, and laid down his body. You remember that story? And they returned, prepared spices, ointment, rested on the Sabbath. There's no change here whatsoever. According to the commandment, Luke. And they found the stone rolled away again on the first day. So, the 3 days of the crucifixion. You have the preparation, that was Friday. You have the Sabbath. Jesus rested in the grave. They rested on that day, the disciples and the women. And on the first day, things started up again. No change. No change. So neither the death nor the resurrection changes it. Which day are the Jews keeping today? Saturday, same as always. Matthew 24:20, pray that your flight be not in the winter nor on the Sabbath day. Jesus is saying 70 AD, when they come to destroy this place, pray that the Sabbath day will not be the day when you have to flee. So he foresaw the Sabbath still being in existence then. One last text. Shake your heads. Go, brrr, wake up. What about Colossians 2:16? Wow, this one is used every time. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or drink, or in respect of any holy day, or the new moon, or the Sabbath days. That's the King James Version. Let no one judge you regard to the Sabbath days. Now, Sabbath days refers to the ceremonial Sabbath days. The Sabbath day refers to the 7-week or the 7-day week Sabbath. Let no one therefore judge you in meat or drink, or in respect of a feast day, or a new moon, or a Sabbath day. That's the American Standard Version. All right. Which of the 10 commandments deals with eating and drinking and new moons and all of those. Any of them? So which laws deal with eatings and drinkings and new moons and things like that? The ceremonial laws. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. Let no man therefore judge you. So they say, Jesus nailed the Sabbath to the cross. No. Jesus never nailed the Sabbath to the cross. He nailed two things to the cross. The whole of the ceremonial law was nailed to the cross because Jesus became the fulfillment of the law. And the condemnation of the law was nailed to the cross, but not the law itself. How do I know? Because it says over there that these laws, this handwriting of ordinances, which was against us, and only the writings of Moses, the ceremonial law, were to be written in a book, placed beside the ark as a witness, says the Old Testament, against us. So these were a shadow of things to come. But the body, the substance of them, is Christ. Colossians 2:17. So let's quickly recap. The weekly Sabbath was instituted in Eden, right? Okay? And it points back to creation. It existed before sin. There it is. It points to creation. Hallow my Sabbath, keep the Sabbath, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the springs of water. It reminds us of where we come from. The shadow Sabbaths, in other words, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Passover, the Feast of the Wave Offering, the First Fruits, all of those special Sabbaths, they could fall on any day, but they pointed to the ministry of Christ. They point forward to Christ. So the ceremonial Sabbath linked the sanctuary service, the shadow service, and pointed forward to redemption. So when Colossians says the Sabbath was a shadow of things to come, who did it point to? Christ. The substance thereof being Christ. So when Christ died, he nailed the ceremonial law to the cross. We don't have to keep special Sabbaths anymore. We don't have to follow the rituals of the Passover, which have to do with eating and drinking and how much of the Passover you were supposed to have and all those issues. It deals with ceremonies. But the Sabbath deals with creation and the Ten Commandments. So those are the only texts that are used against the Sabbath. The disciples, did they change the Sabbath? Paul, as his manners was, went into them and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures, talking to the Jews. And then it says, and he reasoned in the Sabbath with the Jews and the Greeks. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words may be preached to them the next Sabbath. And the next Sabbath day, almost the whole city came together. We read that in Acts chapter 13, 42 and 44. So Paul and the disciples preached on a Sabbath. They kept the Sabbath, whether they were talking to Jews or whether they were talking to Gentiles.